Imagine being a vampire who has lived for centuries. You've survived wars, you've survived betrayals, you've survived heartbreak. But then one day, someone writes a book about your life and gets everything wrong. Now imagine that vampire is Lestat de Lioncourt, the most dramatic vampire ever created. A man so obsessed with attention that instead of writing a response, he decides to become a rock star. But what begins as a quest for revenge soon turns into something far more dangerous. Because the moment Lestat steps into the spotlight, the entire vampire world starts coming for him. And by the end of this episode, he will be hunted, betrayed, nearly killed, and forced to confront a relationship from his past that may explain who he really is. This is the Vampire Lestat Episode 1, and trust me, no one expected what happens next. The story begins in the year 2026, but instead of opening with Lestat himself, the show throws us into a mysterious secret auction. At first, nothing makes sense. Rich collectors, powerful figures, hidden bidders, everyone gathered for one purpose: to buy pieces of Lestat's legacy. But these aren't ordinary collectibles. Some are handwritten musical compositions, some are personal belongings, and some are connected to a mysterious collection called The Failures. 111 recordings, audio files documenting some terrible event connected to Lestat's rise as a rock star. Immediately, questions begin to pile up. What happened? Why are people willing to pay fortunes for these recordings? Why does everyone seem so obsessed with Lestat? And most importantly, why does this feel less like an auction and more like evidence from a crime scene? The atmosphere becomes even stranger when familiar faces appear among the bidders. Louis, Armand, Raglan James, all watching, all interested, all seemingly connected to whatever disaster happened during Lestat's famous 2025 tour. The auction hints at deaths, injuries, chaos, and a worldwide event that changed the vampire world forever. But before answers arrive, the story jumps backward, and that's where everything truly begins. Because believe it or not, the reason Lestat becomes a rock star is surprisingly simple. His feelings got hurt. We find Lestat living in Montreal. At first glance, he appears successful, confident, stylish, as arrogant as ever. But underneath the surface, he's still carrying emotional scars from everything that happened in Interview with the Vampire, especially when it comes to Louis. One evening, Lestat is showing Louis some of the music he's been working on. For a brief moment, he seems vulnerable, almost nervous, like someone seeking approval from the person whose opinion matters most. Then everything changes. A notification appears. Daniel Molloy's book has finally been published. The same Daniel who interviewed Louis, the same Daniel who helped tell the story of their complicated relationship. Lestat immediately realizes something is wrong. Very wrong. He calls Louis, demands answers, but Louis doesn't have the answers he wants. So Lestat does what any emotionally stable vampire would do. He storms out of his apartment and marches directly toward a bookstore. And what happens there is both hilarious and painful. Employees and customers discuss the book. Some mock him, some criticize him, others openly call him a monster. Lestat stands there listening, trying desperately not to explode. Every page feels like an attack. Every description feels like an insult. Because according to Daniel's book, Lestat isn't a tragic hero. He isn't misunderstood. He isn't romantic. He's the villain, the abuser, the monster. And Lestat absolutely cannot accept that. Back at home, his anger reaches a boiling point. He begins reading, and with every page, his frustration grows. Soon, he's scribbling notes everywhere, crossing things out, writing lies across entire sections, correcting details nobody else would care about, arguing with a book that cannot argue back. It's funny, it's ridiculous, and yet it's also sad, because beneath all the arrogance lies a man desperate to be understood. Then things somehow get worse. Halloween arrives, and suddenly children begin showing up outside his home. But they aren't dressed as superheroes or monsters. They're dressed as him, as Louis, as Claudia, as Armand. The most painful chapters of his life have become costumes, entertainment, pop culture. And if that wasn't enough, a terrible garage band is practicing loudly across the street. The music is awful, the timing couldn't be worse, and Lestat finally snaps. But what happens next changes everything. Because instead of simply complaining, Lestat walks across the street and unknowingly takes the first step toward changing the vampire world forever. Inside the garage, a struggling band called Satan's Night Out is rehearsing. The members are passionate, but talented? That's debatable. Lestat listens for only a few moments before criticizing everything: the music, the performance, the direction, the entire operation.
At first, this should have gotten him thrown out. But Lestat has something ordinary people don't: charisma, the kind that fills a room, the kind that's impossible to ignore. Within minutes, the band is completely fascinated by him, and before anyone realizes what's happening, Lestat begins taking control. The music changes, the energy changes, the atmosphere changes. Suddenly the room feels alive, and for the first time all episode, Lestat smiles, because he has found something. Not just a band, not just a distraction, but a stage. A way to tell his story, a way to fight back against Daniel's book, a way to make the entire world listen. And before the night is over, he makes an outrageous decision. The band won't be called Satan's Night Out anymore. No, it will carry a much more appropriate name, the Vampire Lestat. Because if Lestat is going to reclaim his story, he's going to put his name on every billboard, every concert ticket, and every stage in the world. And he has absolutely no idea what kind of nightmare that decision is about to unleash. What Lestat doesn't realize is that becoming famous won't just attract fans. It will attract enemies, ancient enemies, powerful enemies, enemies who believe vampires should never be seen by the human world. And when one of them finally decides to silence him, the consequences will be deadly. But that's where the story gets even crazier.
Lestat throws himself completely into his new identity as a rock star. What begins as a wounded response to Daniel Molloy's book quickly turns into a global sensation. The newly formed band, the Vampire Lestat, starts attracting attention, and soon Lestat is standing before screaming crowds, finally receiving the adoration he believes he deserves. But fame comes with a price. Daniel Molloy, now a vampire himself, joins the tour to film a documentary. Unlike the fans who worship Lestat, Daniel constantly asks uncomfortable questions. He wants to know the truth about Lestat's childhood, his relationship with Louis, and the events that shaped him into the vampire he is today. Meanwhile, Lestat spends much of the episode texting a mysterious person known only as TOI. The audience naturally assumes it is Louis. The messages are emotional, flirtatious, and filled with longing. The band's first major stop is Detroit. The crowd loves him. The media loves him. But not everyone is impressed. Hidden among the audience are vampires who see Lestat's public performances as a dangerous threat to vampire secrecy. During a powerful performance of Black Licorice, Lestat begins losing himself in the music. Memories flood his mind. He sees Louis. He remembers Claudia. Painful ghosts from his past seem to surround him. The concert becomes less of a performance and more of an emotional breakdown. Then something even stranger happens. A young fan named Baby Jenks offers herself to Lestat. He feeds on her blood, but almost immediately experiences terrifying hallucinations. Disturbing visions warn him that death is coming. Whether these visions are supernatural or simply the result of tainted blood remains unclear. But one thing is certain: danger is getting closer, and Lestat has no idea how serious that danger truly is. As Lestat's fame grows, so does the anger of the vampire world. A traditionalist vampire group known as the Fang Gang believes Lestat is breaking the most sacred rule of all: never reveal vampires to humanity. To them, his concerts are reckless, his fame is dangerous, and his existence is becoming a problem that needs to be eliminated. While Lestat struggles with his hallucinations and emotional turmoil, the Fang Gang prepares to strike. At the same time, Daniel's documentary continues exposing cracks in Lestat's carefully crafted image. Every interview forces him to confront painful truths. Behind the confidence and arrogance lies someone deeply lonely and desperate for love. The pressure finally explodes. Lestat finds himself attacked by members of the Fang Gang, including local vampires Tim and Russ. Despite possessing the powerful blood of Queen Akasha, he is in no condition to fight. He's distracted, emotionally unstable, physically weakened. For the first time, the seemingly unstoppable Lestat looks vulnerable. The attack is brutal, and for a moment it appears he may actually die. But help arrives just in time. Daniel Molloy and a mysterious helmeted vampire intervene. The surprise reveal: the mysterious savior is Sam Barclay, a former member of the Théâtre des Vampires and a key figure connected to Armand's past deceptions. The battle exposes an important truth: the vampire world remains divided. Many still believe Armand's version of events regarding Louis and Claudia. Old wounds are still open, and Lestat has accidentally stepped into the middle of a war much larger than himself. After surviving the attack, Lestat finds himself battered, exhausted, and emotionally broken. Throughout the entire episode, one mystery has remained unanswered. Who is TOI? Who has Lestat been desperately texting? The show carefully guides viewers towards one obvious answer: Louis. Everything seems to point towards him: the longing, the vulnerability, the emotional attachment. But then comes the final twist.
The person on the other side of those messages isn't Louis at all. It's Gabriella, Lestat's mother. The reveal changes everything. Suddenly, Lestat's behavior throughout the episode takes on a new meaning. His desperation isn't only about fame. It isn't only about Louis. Deep down, he's reaching for one of the most important people in his entire life. Gabriella's arrival hints at one of the most complex relationships in Anne Rice's mythology, and promises that future episodes will explore the deeper emotional roots of Lestat's personality. The episode ends with Lestat in a terrible position. His band knows more about him than ever before. He's survived an assassination attempt. He's publicly drawn attention to vampires, and he's attracted powerful enemies who want him silenced. The fame he thought would save him has done the opposite. It has painted a target on his back. Meanwhile, the mysterious auction from the beginning still hangs over the story. The references to the failures, the hints of catastrophe, and the suggestion that something devastating happened during Lestat's 2025 tour all point towards an even bigger mystery waiting to unfold. The real question isn't whether Lestat will become famous. He already has. The real question is whether he can survive being the center of attention. And knowing Lestat de Lioncourt, he's going to make sure the entire world is watching when he tries. And that's the complete story of the Vampire Lestat Episode 1. A premiere packed with rock music, vampire politics, emotional breakdowns, shocking reveals, and one very dramatic immortal determined to rewrite his own legend. If you enjoyed this explanation, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode breakdown. Because trust me, this story is only getting started.